Welcome to another episode of Nightbeat Media's Living the Dream. Today, we have a diamond industry expert with us. His name is Marty Hurwitz. He is the force behind the MVEye. They offer research and communication services to a global clientele. Their list includes major brands such as Tiffany, Hallmark, Swarovski, and many, many more. Marty is renowned for his lab-grown diamond market intel report newsletter and is a very sought-after speaker on lab-grown diamonds. The MVI is globally recognized and actively influences the lab grown diamond sector, working with industry authorities and conducting consumer research. Marty, we want to welcome you to the program of Living the Dream.
Oh, great to be with you, Gregory. Thanks for having me on.
Okay. And what we always like to do, Marty, and that is I gave a brief overview of what you do. If you could tell our audience, who is Marty?
Well, I was a third generation jewelry retailer in New York over 33 years ago and worked my way up in the business and eventually realized that the jewelry industry didn't need another kid from Brooklyn selling diamonds. What it really needed was market research with consumers to understand where the future of the business was going. I had had some market research and communication experience in other industries, and one day just hung out a shingle, headed to the West Coast, and started offering jewelry consumer market research to companies all over the world that were manufacturing jewelry, mining diamonds, mining gemstones, or selling jewelry at retail. And that's how our business began, and we've been at it nearly 33 years now.
Okay. Now, this is something unique because I know nothing about the diamond industry. Now, lab grown diamonds. Uh, you gave us far as one of the reasons you saw a need in the marketplace. They didn't need another jeweler, but why lab grown diamonds?
Well, we conduct research on a lot of products and a lot of new product developments, new brands. In 2004, we learned about the first laboratory that had actually grown a gem quality 1 carat white diamond that was suitable for consumers. And so we conducted our first research study on lab grown diamonds in 2004 with thousands of consumers just to see what they would think about it. Would they be interested in it? And the results were absolutely staggering. And we subsequently started conducting research studies every year on that topic. And we slowly but surely saw an incredible progression of awareness in lab grown diamonds and interest in lab grown diamonds, straight through to today, where approximately 50% of every engagement ring sold in the US right now is a lab grown diamond versus a mine diamond. And a lab grown diamond has all of the exact physical, scientific properties of a mine diamond. The only difference is the origin. One comes out of the ground and takes billions of years to grow, and one is grown in a laboratory and takes about 3 weeks to grow. Uh, so it's an incredible technological breakthrough that we identified early on in the process and spotted that consumers would be interested in it, and lo and behold, consumers are gravitating to it now all over the world uh, very quickly.
Now, Marty, part of our show is about the journey. Now, you didn't just start out far as international, you had to grow your market just like the diamonds. You had to grow and you had to, besides see the need for it, become that force within the market because to my knowledge, there's not too many uh, companies that do what MVI does, correct?
Yes, that is correct. And I'm all about the journey um, and the history of both my personal journey and the journey of my company. Um, it's always a topic that I gravitate back to, particularly in challenging times, um, because it was important for me, and I believe it's important for your listeners to accept that the journey is never linear. It's never a straight line that goes from point A to point B to point C. Despite what society wants us to believe, study hard, get some kind of degree, work your butt off, and you will succeed. It doesn't really happen that way, and didn't really happen that way for me. The journey is about a lot of zigs and zags, a lot of ups and downs. It's about learning to respect the losses, the failures, as much as you enjoy the wins, and to really immerse yourself in learning from those challenging times, learning how to pivot, learning how to be aware of things happening in a lot of different places so that when an opportunity comes to you, as disguised as it may seem, you are able to take advantage of it and grow with it and prosper from it. And that's been a big part of my personal story and a big part of my business growth all along. Embrace the journey, accept that it's not a straight line, and really dig in to the learnings of the losses and the failures as much as you enjoy the wins.
Now, Marty, did you have a mentor along the way?
Yes, several. And they came from unusual places. And they often didn't seem like mentors at the time. Uh, but in retrospect, they were very powerful. And these included uh, I was a musician in my youth, and I spent some time with some incredible musicians and leaders of bands. Um, I spent some time in my early career with a small business owner who at the time I thought was a tyrant and a complete idiot. But in later years, I wound up thinking that he knew a lot more than I gave him credit for. I I saw a lot of mentors throughout my journey, and you sometimes listen to them in the moment, but invariably you listen to them in retrospect as well, and you hear their voices and replay those messages in your mind because sometimes you don't get how valuable they are in the exact moment you're hearing them.
Mhm. A and I hear that quite often that at that time, because sometimes a mentor has to tell you sometimes a lot of things you don't wanna hear, but you need to hear. Now, you had talked about for some of the obstacles that you faced along the way. What were some of the lessons that you learned from those missteps or far as from those failure lessons?
Well, the first lesson is to learn is that failure is not what it seems to be. As painful as it may be at the moment, whether it's a lost sale or uh, depressed cash flow, or not as much profit as you were thinking, or whether the loss or failure is a personal one or not. You really have to you really have to live and accept the failure to be much more than failure. You really have to consider it as a step toward success, a stepping stone toward success. And it takes a while to it takes a while, and maybe it takes a long time to accept that. It's not until you age enough and get enough wisdom, have enough experience, meet enough people, that you come to see the failures as teachable moments for the future success.
Okay. Before we get more into MVI, let's go to you getting your first international exposure. How did that come about?
Absolutely an incredible story. I'm so glad you asked about this because I love telling it. When I started my business, my wife joined me reluctantly because she had a really good job. And we moved back, we moved to California. I was from New York, she was from California. We had no money, we had no business, we barely had enough to afford an apartment in Los Angeles. And the one thing we bought was a fax machine. And we had received some very good advice that said, this was around 1987, that said most of the jewelry, like so many other products, was going to start coming from the Pacific Rim. And so we ran an ad in a jewelry trade magazine. We could not afford the ad. And it basically had a map of the US and it said, would you like more business from the lucrative US jewelry market? Fax this number. 50% of the world's jewelry to this day is still sold at retail in the US. At that time, it was even a higher figure. And everybody that was making jewelry on a wholesale level wanted to sell into the US market. So we thought we could get some business out of this ad. What we turned out we got was about 20 faxes a day, but they wouldn't happen during our day. They would happen during our night, which was daytime in Asia. And so all night long, the fax machine would ring in our apartment, most of it coming from very small companies that couldn't afford to pay us anything. And eventually, my wife stopped waking up for these faxes to read them, but I continued to read them until one day we got a fax from an absolutely gigantic company in Australia, and that was the Argyle Diamond Mine, one of the largest diamond mines in the world at the time. And they wanted to talk to us about doing research and development for one of their diamond types that they were mining. At that time, it was called a brown diamond, but through our research and marketing, we helped them change the name to champagne diamonds. And they launched a campaign with us and they stayed with us for 25 years, and it really made our business.
And champagne diamonds. Now, that does ring a bell because I know in the 80s and 90s, you would see the commercials and they had the champagne close by, and that is make it something special. But
Yeah,
that was somewhat of a gamble right there that you took on that ad. And that, did you have any reservations at first? Like, uh, ap apprehensions? Like, did I make the right move?
yeah, we had a lot of apprehension and a lot of reservation. But one of our mentors had told us about this opportunity in the Pacific Rim. It was somebody we believed very strongly. They certainly knew what they were talking about. They were more senior than we were. They had had a lot of experience in the global jewelry industry, and we listened to them. And so we took a gamble on that ad. We took a gamble on buying that fax machine, and um, just turned out to be right place at the right time. This goes back to the journey. You can't always tell what the right place and the right time is. In fact, you rarely do, even though you have some intuition about where it might be. But you really have to be in a lot of places at the same time and be very open to seizing opportunities, even if they don't look like opportunities at the moment. In this case, though, when that fax machine rang, it changed our lives forever.
Okay. Now, we're gonna transition and move a little forward, and that's to your newsletter. What factors or no, as the, publisher of the lab-grown diamond market intel report newsletter with worldwide readership, what key insights or trends have you observed in the lab-grown diamond market in the recent years?
Well, the first key trend that we observed and we began writing about was that consumer research, which, as I say, we've been doing every year since 2004. Basically, without a consumer market, there wouldn't be a trade, a jewelry trade. But what's happening and what has happened in lab grown diamonds is an absolute tidal wave of consumer demand for lab grown diamonds at retail. But the jewelry trade, which is very tradition bound, very change averse, very risk averse, really hard to get them to introduce anything new. They were very reluctant to go with lab grown diamonds in stores or on websites. And our newsletter started focusing on who was succeeding with it, what consumers were saying. We do video interviews with consumers. We do video interviews with key members of the trade all over the world. We write stories about breakthrough styles, about breakthrough brands, etc. And the readership is keen on this because now, after a couple of years of publishing that newsletter, a lot of readership throughout the world because you cannot deny that this is a product category if consumers are coming in on their own and asking for the product. Very few marketing dollars are being spent to encourage consumer interest. They're hearing about it organically and walking into stores asking for it. And so we've really been talking a lot about that and about what the consumers are saying and what the different members of the trade are doing to benefit from it. And that's what drives the readership of our newsletter.
Now, Marty, you are asked to speak at a lot of places throughout the world concerning the industry. What are some of the concerns or questions that a lot of your audience have during your presentations?
Um, I just did a presentation recently at the Gemological Institute of America, also called the GIA. This is probably the leading gemological training institute in the world that trains people to learn about gems and jewelry and prepare them for careers in the industry. It's a very rigorous educational program with a lot of smart young kids and some terrific professors as well, based here in Southern California. And they invited me to speak at their Career Fair Day, which is an event they have annually for the graduates to learn about where the career opportunities are in the gem and jewelry industry. And there's a vibrant young audience with a lot of great questions. I was speaking on the evolution of this lab grown diamond category, which not a lot of people in the trade really know what's gone on, even though it's been since 2004. The bulk of the activity has just been in the last couple of years. So these students really got an eye-opening presentation from me that also talked about the ability of lab-grown diamonds to not only be for jewelry, but to have a place in the scientific semiconductor and quantum computing world as well. Diamonds are, in the not too distant future, going to be very involved in semiconductor microcircuitry in traditional computers and servers, but also in the quantum computing space. And I've been fortunate enough to know a little bit about what some of the different companies are doing in that space, and I shared that with these students, and it was quite an eye-opening experience for them.
And that was you just kinda jumped straight into what my next question was going to be about the scientific implications far as of the lab-grown diamonds. So, what are some of the things or what would you suggest a young person looking to potentially enter the industry in the future, how can they prepare themselves?
Well, um, the main road to take toward a career in scientific applications of diamonds, which, by the way, will dwarf the gem industry by a thousandfold, is to head in the direction of a material scientist course of study, either at an undergraduate level or a graduate level, because growing diamonds is all about material science. And what one property that diamonds have, in addition to being the probably the hardest substance on Earth in either their mine state or their lab grown state, is they are heat diffusers. They absorb heat, and anybody that knows anything about semiconductor or microelectronics is the smaller the technology gets in microelectronics, the higher the output of heat in the circuitry. And one of the biggest challenges the computer industry faces right now, with all these servers serving the cloud and all the other applications, is keeping them cool enough so that they don't overheat. You have servers underwater to keep the cloud functioning without overheating. They call it cryogenics. The cooling of circuitry is a critical factor. Once diamonds are integrated into circuitry, the need for cryogenics to cool computer equipment, whether it's traditional servers or quantum computers, the need for cryogenics will be reduced because diamonds will reduce every circuit that they are involved in. This to me is a gigantic future in the electronics and the computing industry, in the space industry, in the defense technology industry, and a whole range of different applications. And there are people working on it all over the world. And there's a big need for young material scientists to get involved in this.
And this does seem like a field that's rapidly evolving like everything else so far in the world. And sometimes you have to sprint in order to stand still and keeping
Mm-hmm.
up with stuff. But could you share with us some of your success stories or case studies where the MVI made a significant impact on a client's position in the lab-grown diamond market or in the industry, period?
Sure. Well, following on from that earlier story I told you about Champagne Diamonds, in 1994, that same client, Argyle Diamonds, took me to India for the first time, and that was an eye-opening experience for me. But India is the dominant player in the cutting and polishing of all diamonds, both mined and lab grown. And in 1994, they were cutting mined diamonds for Argyle and selling them to jewelry manufacturers who were putting that diamond jewelry into the biggest stores in the world, which were in the U.S. And we came up with a program to help teach those same Indian diamond cutters how to manufacture the jewelry so that they could build a jewelry manufacturing industry in India and not just cut the diamonds and make a few pennies on cutting the diamonds, but actually put them into jewelry and sell the jewelry into U.S. retailers. And this was a program called the Indo-Argyle Diamond Council. It was a multinational marketing effort to not only teach the Indian companies how to make jewelry with the diamonds they were cutting, but also teach the biggest jewelry retailers in the world to buy the jewelry from India and save money for themselves and make more margin and give a better value to their consumer. That program lasted uh, a good 15 years, and it literally turned a industry in India that was a few $1 million into a multi-billion-dollar sector, and it really promoted the standard of living for thousands of people.
Now, Marty, our audience is it's a diverse audience, and we're continuously growing this audience. So, for those who are interested, how can they find out more information, or what are some of the areas where you would point them to do their own research or find out more information about this industry?
Well, I'm happy to talk to any of your audience. I know they're a diverse group, very smart group. You can reach me at themveye.com, and I is spelled out EYE. Themvi.com. Leave me a message there, and I'm very good about talking to everybody who reaches out to me. I'm also very active on LinkedIn, where anybody can find me, and you can send me a message. Uh, uh, we're we're in an industry that needs new people, needs more diverse population of people working in the industry, and needs more young people. So I very often, thinking back to my days of pre MVEye and my career, I seek to mentor people whenever they are looking for new directions in their careers, and I'm happy to talk to anybody about that at any
Well, Marty, I know you are a very busy man. Before we leave or before we go, do you have anything particular that you would like our audience to unpack or uh, to ponder or marinate over?
time. I'm a big believer in mindfulness, and I'm a big believer in living in the moment. We all have regrets of the past and anxieties of the future, but it's important to let that flow over you like a river and just live in the moment. That's the only thing you can control. And in that moment, if you breathe deeply and accept your current place, you will find opportunities will appear to you, and your new journey will become self-evident. And I encourage everybody to do that.
And Marty, from our conversation, I got so much valuable information far as from you. And one of the things I really want to emphasize that I'm really taking away from this, and that is not to overthink things, because sometimes I have that problem of, okay, I'll do my research. It's not to say don't do your research. You research it, but don't overthink it, because the one example you had mentioned, the champagne diamond campaign, if that would have been, overthought, that, wow, what are all the implications, or why it wouldn't work if you took out that ad and so forth, then you would not have made that move, and those changes may very well would not have happened. And so often, many of us, we stay stuck because we overthink things.
Yeah. It, the reality is the conscious mind, the logical mind that we think we have is not. nearly as positive, as powerful as the subconscious mind. And that's really where our strength is, in accepting the spontaneity of the moment, because even scientists will tell you what they know is a very, very small part of what they don't know. So it's absurd to think that we could know it all before we take an action. We can rely a lot more on our uh, the supercomputer that is our subconscious mind.
Again, thank you very much, Marty. And we hope to have you back here, follow up with you again to find out any other changes that are occurring. Again, thank you very much.
Happy to do it anytime, Gregory. I appreciate it.
Okay. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and share it with a friend. Your support means the world to us. We'll see you in the next one.